I've been in and around the recruitment industry for over 20 years and have literally interviewed thousands of candidates. This in turn tells me that I've reviewed many more CVs than that, and I've recruited for and interviewed with countless hiring managers. And I've also trained managers to be better interviewers and have trained staff to be better interviewees. And so to support you on your own career journey, I'm sharing all of my hints and tips on all the aspects of the entire recruitment life cycle that will help you build confidence and dramatically increase your chances of success when you're looking for your next role. So make sure that you hit subscribe and ensure that you get all of the inside information for each part of your recruitment journey. Hi, I'm Bryn Keech from LEaderoola and welcome to this CV writing video. So let's jump straight in. Your CV gives the reader a view of you, your skills and your experience, and what you want it to be is a compelling read, one that the reader finds interesting enough that they want to read on and hopefully invite you through for an interview. That's the aim of your CV, to tell a story well enough that the reader wants to progress you through to the next stage of the process. But firstly, remember this. The CV that you build will shift and change slightly every time you use it to tell a story when you're applying for different roles. And what I mean by that is this: you have to tailor your CV every time you use it for each position that you apply for. Not massively, not changing what you did or where you worked or for how long for. That's not the right thing to do, but by tweaking the layout, the words, the phrases slightly so that your story more suitably fits the role that you're applying for. You'll see this when we get there, but for starters, think about the CV that you're about to build as your master copy, one that never changes, but one that you will adapt for each role that you apply for. When you apply for each role, you simply go to your master copy, you make a copy of that and make any of the relevant changes and adaptations to the new copy, always keeping your master copy as how you originally wrote it. But what should it look like? Even when you open up document writing apps like Microsoft Word, it shows you options for CV templates, but unless you're in a creative role such as a graphic designer where you want to demonstrate your creative flair, in fact, it's almost expected that your CV should be very creative in this type of industry. I wouldn't suggest that you use these to stand out for any other industries. These have made people stand out for the wrong reasons to hiring managers and recruiters. I know I'll get lots of feedback and comments and questions from viewers telling me that they've seen CVs with graphics on and they didn't think it was a problem, and that they've worked in the recruitment industry themselves and I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's fine. I'm going with my own experiences, but I've worked with hundreds of hiring managers over the years, and every now and then I get someone saying negative about someone's CV because of the way it looks and the template that they've used. And all I'm saying is to minimize the risk of someone not liking your CV. It's best to steer clear of fancy templates and stick to a well-founded formula. Now, the negative comments are irrelevant and have no relation to whether the candidate is capable or not of doing the role, but for some reason or another, that particular hiring manager just didn't like the look of the CV layout. And this can have a negative impact and effect on whether that hiring manager progresses you to the next stage. Okay, let's talk about whether a hiring manager can actually decline you on the way your CV looks. Now, we all know that you cannot and should not discriminate against anybody on this basis, but we all know in honesty that it still happens behind the scenes. And what we want to ensure that we do is we minimize the risk of this happening by not playing to the unconscious bias of people that are reviewing your CV. Now, you'll notice in other videos that I do that there is a pattern of me talking about how to avoid becoming a victim of bias in the recruitment process that's worth knowing. So do make sure that you subscribe to get all of the videos. Click the notification icons so that you know when I've uploaded new content. So your CV ideally should follow a formula such as this. Name first. You don't have to write curriculum vitae on the top. It's a given that that's what the document is. Your contact details, and again, make sure that you put them in because you won't believe how many times I've seen CVs where people have forgotten to add their contact details to them. A personal statement or your personal profile, which is what we'll talk about in a moment. Important educational information, career history and closing details. If you're applying for graduate positions, you'll have very little experience and you won't be able to write a lot in your career history section. So highlight your qualifications, put these first, and make sure that you disclose details of any relevant activities that you undertook as part of your studies that might be of interest to the recruiter or the hiring manager. For example, did you do work experience as a student? Was it in a similar environment to the one that you're applying to join? Any information that you can provide that suggests you have something more about you than the other candidates can support your application. As a recruiter of graduates, I've always looked for candidates that are doing or have done more than just graduate. The ones that can show me that they're passionate about something, that they show genuine interest and can demonstrate how they've advanced their experiences and have been actively involved in something that helps build knowledge and character, perhaps volunteering work, extra activities in the community or supporting others. Before you start writing, think about the font that you're going to use. Make it professional. Something like Arial or similar works well. It's familiar for the reader, but it's not too stuffy. Make your font size between 10 and 12 and ensure that the font and the font size are consistent throughout your CV. Section headings are also a good way to break up your CV and ensure they stand out more by making them larger, perhaps a font size 14 or 16, and make them bold. Keep it concise by using clear spacing and bullet points. This type of CV layout allows potential recruiters and employers to skim your CV quickly to pick out the important information that they need first. Now, if you're posting your CV out to employers, that's absolutely fine. Print it out on clean white A4 paper and only print it on one side. Put it in an A4 envelope rather than folding it. Again, it makes it clean and professional. So the big question is, should it be a maximum of 2 pages? For me, I found that if it's not 2 pages, it's not a deal breaker. If it spills onto 3, that's fine. And I found that 100% of all of the hiring managers that I've ever worked with have never had a complaint about a CV being more than 2 pages. But that doesn't mean that you can write War and Peace. You shouldn't have to. 2 to 3 pages is absolutely fine. In fact, I once received a CV from a senior executive that was 27 pages long. For me, that was way too much, and I felt like it was going to be a waste of my time if I sat and read it all, let alone feeling comfortable about sending it through to the hiring manager, who happened to be my own director. Now, the candidate did have some really interesting experience, and I did decide to call him and discuss his CV in detail, and we got down to the nitty-gritty of ensuring that he was comfortable with sending me a summarised version. Now, I wouldn't do this normally, but on this occasion I felt as though it was the right thing to do. Don't put your picture on your CV. Okay, I'll get some comments from people suggesting that there's nothing wrong with doing this, and I understand that it's absolutely fine and popular in some European countries, but here's the deal: you don't have to put it on there. It's not law, and you'll always find that people that are reviewing your CV will always look at your picture first, and if they say they don't, then they're lying. They will then make an unconscious decision on whether they like you or not as an individual, and whether they're interested in reading on. And if they don't like you, then perhaps that's where your journey ends with them. Don't give them a reason to decline your CV even before they read it. Of course, they won't admit it when giving you feedback, but this can sometimes be the reason why your CV didn't make it through to the next stage. People can judge others by the way they look. It's human nature. We can't help it. Ideally, don't add company logos or any other graphics. It makes it stand out potentially for the wrong reasons. Trust me, I've worked with hiring managers enough to know what sort of structure or format feels familiar and comfortable to them. But if the logo relates to a recognised qualification that you have, such as ones like Microsoft or Cisco, or finance qualifications or HR qualifications, that's absolutely fine. There's not an issue with you doing it, and it's becoming more and more common and accepted these days for those sorts of logos to be added. Your personal statement or your personal profile is something that I can't write for you. It's personal, and we've all got different experiences, so none of them will be the same. So how do you go about writing one? Now, a personal statement is a concise paragraph or a summary which details what you can bring to a job or a company. It's also known as an opening statement or an executive summary. It's your opportunity to really sell yourself and to highlight the relevant skills and experience that you have. It can tell a recruiter that you're a good fit for the role. A personal statement gives you the chance to show off your strengths and even share your career goals. If written well, it can help the reader decide on whether they want to read further and the rest of your CV. Tailor your personal statement for each application, but always be honest. Provide evidence of skills and experience, but remember to keep it brief. Stick to perhaps 2 to 4 lines of wording. Read it out aloud once you've finished writing it to make sure that it flows. Here's an example. Company X is looking for a senior marketing manager for their luxury brands, and in the job advert they've given an overview of the company that explains that they're a global organisation with global customers and they use the latest digital technologies for their marketing approach. Now Steve sees the advert and applies for the role, and in his personal statement at the top of his CV he writes this: a dedicated and professional CIM qualified marketing manager with experience in penetrating new markets for world-class luxury car brands, has held management level roles in Europe and possesses strong digital marketing skills, personally grew ABC Limited's profits by 40% this year through mapping innovative solutions, and is now looking to progress into a senior management marketing role with an entrepreneurial, fast-paced luxury brand with international growth. Great statement, and it demonstrates that Steve has European experience in luxury brands, has managerial experience, has digital marketing experience, and is ready to progress into a senior role. Steve has also added stats here by suggesting that he has personally been responsible for his employer's profit increase. This statement helps to briefly outline his experiences and tells Company X the kind of candidate that Steve is. So when you're building your master copy of your CV, think about what you would say about your professional achievements and your experiences and turn it into 3 or 4 lines on your CV. Again, as mentioned earlier, your personal statement will tweak for each role that you apply for. Look at the job advert, look at the type of person that the company wants to hire, look at the wording on the job advert, the experiences that they want for the ideal candidate. And if you can honestly say that you have these experiences, highlight them in your personal statement. You could say something like a certified finance professional with proven experience in reconciliation accounting, or a high-achieving team player with the ability to work on large-scale recruitment projects. Whatever it is that you're looking to put, make sure that it's accurate and truthful. Are you a high-achieving team player? Can you prove it? Next, you're looking at your important education information. I say important, I mean relevant. For your master copy of your CV, put all of your qualifications down, but when you're applying for each role, consider removing any that you think aren't relevant or wouldn't be of interest to the reader for this particular role. If I'm recruiting for a project manager, I'm not interested in seeing that he's also a qualified plumber. It's not relevant and takes up space. Do you have any qualifications that are relevant for the role? Perhaps the role requires a finance or a marketing qualification. Put those here. Add the institute where you got the qualification from. Add your grade and what the qualification is. Add the date if you want to, but it's not expected these days. Now onto your career history. This is where some people can really find themselves confused about the kind of information that they should be adding here. Not so much the detail, but how to display it. My advice if you're looking to build a really good CV, well, before you start adding detail to your CV, sit with a pen and paper and think about each of your roles in turn and focus just on them. Write down all of the key features of that role, the responsibilities, the accountabilities, the environment, the team structure, your reporting lines, your stakeholder groups, etc. Only move on to your next role once you feel comfortable that you've exhausted all of the information that you can think of. Now, once you've done that, you can then fine-tune each role description so that you feel as though it's concise, straight to the point, and gives enough detail in about 6 or 7 lines. You also have a choice of the writing style too. You could go for a first-person approach like, I currently work in the marketing department of Company X where I'm responsible for, or a more distanced approach. Working in the marketing department of Company X, responsible for all internal and external relations and the performance and output of a team of 5 marketing professionals. The second approach is more commonly used as it gives more of a professional descriptive style, but make sure that it sounds natural when you read it. So do read through each description as you complete them to see how they sound. Get colleagues to read them and get their honest views. Don't be offended if they give you constructive feedback. It's all about the learning, and something that you've written sounds okay to you but may not make sense to other people when they're reading it. Remember that the hiring manager that reviews your CV may not understand what you're trying to say, and they need to see if they can fit your skills into the role that they're looking to recruit. So all the help that you can get to refine those details should be greatly received and acted upon. Once you've written your career history sections, map them into your master CV. Add the dates of employment first, then your job title, then your employer company name. I typically add a couple of words that describe what the company is. ABC Limited, a luxury car valeting company employing 140 people. Make the dates stand out. Always ensure that you put the months there as well as the years in your details. 2019 to 2020 against a particular job on your CV is not enough and can easily be rejected because some hiring managers think that you're trying to hide something by not adding in the months as well. For example, if someone just puts 2019 to 2020 for working for ABC Limited, this can either mean that they've worked for almost a year there or around a month. As with anyone, hiring managers don't typically like to feel that they're being conned, so will be very cautious about people that miss out details in their CV. If there happens to be a gap in your career history, perhaps you took a couple of months out to go travelling, then also add this detail in. If a hiring manager is unsure about what happened to you between jobs, they can become suspicious. Here's an example. Joanne finished her role with Company X in June 2019 and then started her role with Company Y in October 2019. If she leaves a gap with no details, her CV looks incomplete and will raise questions from the hiring manager. Be honest about what happened. Joanna took time out to complete some qualifications and exams, and so by adding this into the CV completes her career timeline and makes things easier for the hiring manager to understand exactly what happened, rather than leaving a gap because she wasn't working for 4 months. Even if you haven't been doing anything other than job hunting for a few months, still tell the reader what you've been doing. It fills in the gaps on your CV. Many times I've been asked about how far back you should go with your career on your CV. Well, if you're like me and you've got a career that spans over 25 years, it could be tempting to put all of that detail on there. This will only make your CV way too much for people to read, and I can also guarantee that the stuff that you did way back at the start of your career is probably no longer relevant. Going back about 10 years or so should do it, and this will display more relevant detail. Now, if you're young and have a long career in front of you rather than behind you, perhaps you've only been working for the last couple of years since leaving school, college or university, then that's all you can put on your CV, and that's all that would be expected. But give good accounts of your responsibility and details and demonstrate this in your CV. There's nothing wrong with adding further sections, what you're looking for and how you want to progress your career, and this shows real potential employees what you want to do with your career and gives them an idea of the ideal direction that you see yourself going with your career moving forward. But be warned, if it doesn't fit with their ideas on what they want for someone in the role that they're recruiting for, it may not be a good fit for them. Now, I appreciate that the graduate candidates will all have similar small levels of experience, that they may not have 100% of what's being required, but if they can demonstrate that they're a go-getter, that's someone that stands out from the others because of further achievements, takes an interest in their future by explaining where they see their career going, the industry or the function rather than the senior levels that they're expecting to get to, explaining in your CV that you want to be the next CFO of Google over the next 5 years may make you sound a little bit big-headed and cocky and arrogant, so choose your words carefully. For graduate or apprentice roles, if I can see that the candidate is continuing to progress themselves with further studying or qualifications, even ones that they're paying for themselves, I'm suitably impressed. It gives me an idea of the character of that individual. Okay, last section, the closing details. This is the round off of your CV. If there are any further details that you want to add, this is the place to put them. They can include things like your social activities, further qualifications, interests and hobbies. Any more than that is not necessary. Don't write references available on request. It's a given that you'll be providing references if you're successful in your application. You'll also need to think about what you're going to write for your social activities and hobbies. If I ever see something like this on a CV, like socialising with friends, watching TV and listening to music, I typically tut and shake my head. This is so cliche. It tells me nothing about the individual. Tell me something interesting and relevant that gives me an idea that you're more than the rest of the applicants. If you're a member of a club or an association related to work or the industry that you want to get into, that's great. Perhaps a governing body for finance professionals or a marketing group. Fine, add the details in. Have you been volunteering or doing work in your community? Put that in. Again, it gives me an idea of the character of the individual. The biggest tick for the reader of your CV is that it has a logical order and presentation. It's easy and familiar to read. There's good formatting, the length is right, and it's in Word format. The biggest frustrations for people when reading your CVs is certainly that candidates applying for roles that they are not suited for. You read the CV and you can't find anything that suggests that this candidate is suitable. Poor grammar and spelling is rife in this day and age. Check your CV for errors every time you update it. Get someone else to proofread it for you. CVs that are too generic just don't work. If the CV is too generic, the reader may struggle to find common ground in the role and you and your experience. So this is why we're saying it's best to tailor your CV for the role that you're applying for. Also, a good covering letter is still really important. Many will argue in the 21st century that it isn't, but don't be fooled. Over 40% of recruiters and hiring managers will disregard a CV if there's no covering letter. When you are writing a covering letter, make sure that it's tailored to the role that you're applying for. Even if you're not being asked to provide a covering letter, it's still worth considering, as it might just make you stand out from the crowd, and it provides an opportunity for you to add further detail to support your application. Well, I hope this video has given you more of an idea on how to write a good CV. Feel free to add comments and ask questions in the section below, and as always, subscribe for more content and updates on CV writing and interview skills. Thanks for watching.